Incredible journey. Young woman's daily acts of kindness expose hidden billionaire connection. Jessica Johnson stood behind the counter of the Maplewood Diner, her bright smile shining like the morning sun. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee swirled around her, mingling with the laughter of regulars who filled the seats, creating a comforting symphony of community. Jess, just 25, was no ordinary waitress. Raised by a single mother who wrestled daily with the harsh realities of life, she understood what it meant to fight tooth and nail against the odds. Every act of kindness, whether delivering groceries to the elderly or volunteering at the community center, was Jess's way of fighting back. She believed in the power of love and support, the currency that mattered most. But her heart felt heavy this week. Unshakable worry settled in her chest like an unwanted guest. Her mother's health had taken a sudden nosedive, and the burden of responsibility loomed large. "Mom, it's okay. We'll get through this," Jess whispered. But deep down, she feared for their future. Each dollar she earned at the diner stretched thinner than her mother's favorite cardigan. Yet, she smiled, pouring coffee and cracking jokes, hiding the storm brewing inside as life unfolded. Danger approached like a dark cloud over Maplewood. A scandal erupted, spreading like wildfire. Rumors of corruption implicated the mayor and divided the townsfolk, sowing distrust that Jessica had never seen before. In the chaos, whispers turned toward her, a gruesome spotlight on her mysterious benefactor, Mr. Howard Grant. The town's reclusive billionaire had quietly financed community projects, lifting spirits even as he remained in the shadows. But now, those shadows threatened to encase Jess in judgment. Who does she think she is? Some muttered, their eyes narrow with envy. Jess cringed at the thought. She never sought Mr. Grant's help. She only wanted to make her community better. As weeks passed, the gossiping whispers grew louder, pitting neighbors against one another. With her mom's illness peaking, Jess knew she needed to take a stand. "I'll call a town meeting," she decided, her voice steady but her heart racing. She called on friends, those still believing in kindness, to rally around her mother's needs. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. That evening, as the town gathered, Jess felt the weight of her world pressing down. Faces filled with doubt surrounded her, and anxiety buzzed in the air like electricity. Just when she thought it couldn't get any more tense, Mr. Grant unexpectedly stepped through the door. Every eye turned, jaws dropped as the reclusive billionaire stood in front of the community he'd been quietly helping. "People of Maplewood," Mr. Grant began, his voice a soothing balm. "I know the rumors swirl like storm clouds, but you must understand it's time to break down those walls of judgment. I was one of you once, lost and seeking hope. Your kindness is what kept me going." As he spoke, a hopeful silence crept over the crowd, leaving Jess breathless. Could this be the moment that would shift the narrative? Would she and Maplewood find healing among the hurt? Her heart pounded against her ribs as she glanced around, eager to know if they had the strength to embrace empathy over resentment. The future hung uncertainly, ready to tip in either direction, as her eyes met her mother's, flickering with both fear and love. Would they find redemption in this tangled mess of misunderstanding? When Mr. Grant finished speaking, the room held its breath. For a moment, Jess believed the electricity of hope could bridge the gaps between those who had grown distrustful. She could see tiny flickers in the eyes of the townsfolk, curiosity, maybe a spark of understanding. The silence, however, proved heavy with the weight of unanswered questions. Jess stepped forward, heart in her throat, her hands trembling. "Thank you, Mr. Grant," she said, her voice barely a whisper at first. She cleared her throat, finding strength in the gaze of those she loved. "I've always believed in kindness, but now, I need your help. My mom needs your help. I can't fight this alone." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, but others remained skeptical. Jessica felt the weight of their eyes, sensing the judgment lurking like darkness. But she pressed on. "We can't let fear divide us. It's time to come together, to support one another especially when times are tough. A tall man, Mr. Thompson, one of the most vocal critics of Mr. Grant, stood up. And what makes you think we can trust you? You've been in league with him, what's really in it for you? His tone cut through the hope like a knife. Nothing, Jess replied, a touch of desperation creeping into her voice. For me, it's never been about the money. I don't want anything. Just to see my mom live a little longer. To see this town thrive without hate between us. The crowd shifted. Jess could see those who were starting to change their minds, slowly warming to her plea. Then, out of nowhere, an elderly woman stood up, a familiar face known for her sweet smiles and baked goods. Mrs. Thomas took a breath, steadied herself. Jess is right. I know how tough it gets. I remember her grandmother bringing me meals when I was laid up after my fall. Buying kindness with kindness. We've all benefited from what Mr. Grant has done quietly. He has helped our community. That seemed to kindle something in the crowd. Jess's heart raced. Hope bubbled within her. Encouraged, she turned back to the billionaire standing at the back, still watching. Mr. Grant, will you help us rally the town together? There's so much we can do if we join hands. Mr. Grant's expression changed. Jess saw determination flicker in his eyes. Tell me what you need, Jessica. I'll not only stand beside you. I'll help carry that burden, but it won't just be about money. It's about time, resources, and belief in what we can achieve together. The atmosphere shifted yet again. Cheers erupted. A collective sigh of relief lifted their spirits. She felt the rush of unity push through her like a warming light, igniting the space between them. But then the door slammed open, and in stormed a group of protesters brandishing signs against Mr. Grant. No deals with the devil, one shouted, and the warmth in the room flickered dangerously. Jess felt her heart drop. Was this progress, or was it destined to crumble again? She looked to her mother, whose frail hand rested on the table, eyes filled with both fear and strength. Could she really unify Maplewood amidst the chaos? The sound of shouts and jumbled voices drowned out her thoughts. She caught a glimpse of Mr. Grant, unflinching, standing firm against the tide as the division threatened to erupt. Jess clenched her fists. Could she rise above the noise and lead her community toward healing? In that fragile moment, the stakes had never felt higher, and she realized the true battle was just beginning. She took a steadying breath, preparing for whatever was to come next. But would the resolve of the town endure, or would it all slip away in the face of fear? Jess's pulse raced as the protesters surged into the room, their voices piercing through her fragile sense of hope. The once supportive energy scattered like leaves in a wild wind. She clenched her fists tighter, determined not to let this chaos break her resolve. Grant stepped forward, his authoritative presence seemingly a shield against the storm. I understand your concerns, he said, raising his hands to calm the uproar. But have you considered my role in all of this? I'm here to help, not hurt. His voice rumbled with conviction, a stark contrast to the anger filling the room. One of the protesters, a young woman with fiery red hair, shouted back, help? Or buy us off? You think your money can silence our fears? The accusation stung, and Jess felt the weight of truth in the words. Many had suffered under the guise of help that came with strings attached. Jess couldn't stay silent. No one is trying to silence anyone. We all know this town needs change. My mom, she is not just a statistic. She is a person. And there are so many lives at stake here. Her voice trembled but rose with passion, causing a ripple of acknowledgement from some in the crowd as the shouting continued. She searched for assurance in her mom's eyes. In that chaos, she saw a flicker of hope. Her mother's frail fingers moved slightly, finding Jess's hand. It was a reminder of the strength hidden in vulnerability. Listen, she shouted, her heart thundering. We've been scared long enough. Fear has kept us apart. But what is stronger? Fear or love? We can either tear ourselves apart or come together. The crowd's moment of silence drew in like a breath, hesitant but hanging on her words. Thompson, still glaring, looked ready to erupt but hesitated. And what do you propose we do, Jess? Just trust the man who has caused so much unrest? Trust is built through actions. Jess replied, gaining momentum. We need to show our town what we can create together. A day of kindness. A day when we help one another instead of fighting. Let us pull together our skills and resources. We can create something beautiful for Maplewood. The atmosphere shifted once again, tension easing slightly. Jess dared to hope. The signs of dissent were still there, but now curiosity peeked through the cracks. She approached Mr. Grant again, this time with a look of determination. Will you support a community event? Show them that your intentions are pure? He nodded, eyes gleaming with understanding. Count me in, Jess. Let us show them the power of unity rather than division. But it'll take all of us. A hesitant applause rippled through some in the crowd, a cautious beginning to something hopeful. It was a start, but there was still a long way to go. The protesters stood like sentinels, bodies tense and distrustful. Jess knew she had to reach them. Mr. Grant and I need your voices, just like you need ours. If we can't talk, then how can we heal? She stepped closer to the group, vulnerability in her voice. I'm scared too. I'm terrified of losing my mom. But I'd rather face that fear together than let it destroy us. The murmurs grew louder, the energy shifting again, swirling with anticipation. Jess felt the sense of community rustling like leaves unfurling after a long winter. The idea of a day of kindness could be the thaw Maplewood needed. Mrs. Thomas stepped forward, her voice shaky but clear. I agree. Let us find ways to help each other, to learn. Moments passed, eyes on her, and one by one, hands raised in agreement. Let us set aside our differences. Then, just when the room started to take shape, filled with the warmth of potential, another voice called from the back. What if it's all a trick? What if we're still being played? Jess turned, heart racing anew. Danger hovered like a dark cloud, and she wondered, who could be trusted in this fragile moment of hope? The tension thickened as Jess's eyes swept over the crowd. The skeptical voice lingering in the air sent ripples of uncertainty. She could feel her heartbeat loud in her chest, pushing her to speak again, to anchor the hope she'd kindled. Look, she exclaimed, taking a step toward the voice, I understand your fears. Trust isn't easy, especially when we felt betrayed. She paused, scanning the faces around her. Some were still hard, others softening. But imagine if we could transform that fear into something positive, something that connects us instead of tearing us apart. The fiery red-haired woman stared Jess down, crossing her arms. And what if it all turns out to be just talk? What if you bring us nothing but empty promises? Then I will hold myself accountable, Jess replied, her voice steady. If we don't try, we can never find out what we can achieve together. This isn't just about Mr. Grant or me. It's about all of us stepping into change. The energy in the room shifted again, more murmurs bouncing around as people exchanged glances. Jess sensed a crack in the wall of distrust. It was small, yet it felt monumental. Mr. Grant stepped back into the conversation, his voice robust. Every single one of you has faced struggles that have shaped who you are today. You deserve more than just being pushed around. He gestured with openness. Let us invest in this community, not with cash, but with shared purpose. I'm not here to make donations and walk away, he added, locking eyes with several protesters. I want to be part of Maplewood's transformation. I want to listen to each of your ideas and fears. Together, we can build something far greater than just a day of kindness. Jess held her breath as she watched expressions change. The skepticism was still there, but now it mingled with curiosity. Would they really take a step toward unity? Mrs. Thomas spoke up again, her voice gaining strength. What kind of changes are we talking about? I mean, we need real action, not more speeches. I get it, Jess replied, feeling the spark of resolve. Maybe we can start with something tangible. A community garden? A day where we clean up the parks together? Something that shows we care about our home and each other. That idea stuck. People began to talk amongst themselves, heads nodding. Jess saw the first flicker of excitement in their eyes. And we can include workshops, teach each other skills, share stories, support us in moments that matter. It's a beginning. Why should I trust you? The red-haired woman shot back, but this time it was softer. A question rather than an accusation. Because I'm standing here, vulnerable just like all of you. I'm scared too. But I believe in our strength when we stand together. Jess darted a glance at her mom, still holding her hand. She could feel her mother's support washing over her like a warm light. That a ripple of agreement spread through the room, some nods lifting the weight hanging in the air. But just then, someone shouted from the back again. This all sounds good, but what if Mr. Grant slips out as soon as things turn tough? Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Jess's heart sank. Doubts were back, and with them, fear. Why did it feel so fragile? Then let us make sure he doesn't. Mrs. Thomas said suddenly, surprising everyone. We can set up regular meetings, keep each other updated, make this a community project we monitor. No empty promises. Jess couldn't contain her smile. That was it. There it was, the collective rising. Absolutely. Together we'll create transparency. We can hold each other accountable. We're stronger together. Still, heavy eyes looked at Mr. Grant, gauging his reaction. He nodded slowly, the weight of the world resting on his shoulders. You have my commitment. If there's any deceit here, I'll be the first to admit it. The atmosphere electric now. Jess could feel a spark of change igniting as whispers of hope transformed into plans. But deep inside, an unsettling question lingered. Could they really trust him, or was the storm still waiting to break? And as the crowd started to plan their first steps toward this vision, Jess wondered if they could ever truly heal the wounds of Maplewood, or if the darkness would always lurk just beyond the horizon. The room buzzed with a new energy. People leaned into one another, their conversations shifting from doubt to possibility. Jess couldn't believe it. They were actually moving toward a shared vision. But as quickly as excitement sparked, her gut twisted. Could this fragile hope withstand the realities of their world? All right, Mr. Grant raised his hands to guide the crowd's focus. Let us brainstorm. What do you want to see from this community garden? What can it provide that we're missing right now? His enthusiasm was infectious, and people quickly rallied around the idea. Jess looked around, her heart swelling. Her mother squeezed her hand tighter, almost like she was trying to absorb the joy radiating from Jess. How about herbs? A young voice piped up from the back. We could use fresh herbs for cooking. Great idea, Jess said, beaming. Imagine cooking with fresh basil or mint, just steps away from your kitchen. A place for kids to learn about nature, another added. They can plant seeds, watch them grow, and learn responsibility. The suggestions piled up. Benefits blossomed like flowers coming to life. Someone even raised the possibility of adding picnic tables, a place for families to come together. But Jess also felt undercurrents of doubt. Just when they were reaching for the stars, she could sense the resistance masked beneath budding dreams. Let us not get too ahead of ourselves. The red-haired woman stood strong, her arms crossed again. We need to figure out how we're going to maintain this. Who is going to water it? What if it turns into another abandoned project? A silence followed, as tension once again wrapped around the gathered crowd like a cloak. Jess felt the weight of her earlier resolve pressed down by the reality of the moment. They needed to address these questions, or the energy would fizzle out like an extinguished flame. We need volunteers, she said quickly, the idea forming in her mind as she spoke. We could set up a rotation for caring for the garden. Everyone can play a part, dedicate time when they can. It'll bring us together, make it ours. The crowd began to murmur, considering. The dialogue shifted, instinctively gathering around the notion of accountability and shared responsibility. There was hope in cooperation, a mutual interest to protect what they were building together. Yet, Jess wondered if her confidence would hold. Would they stay committed when real life intruded? As the crowd discussed expectations and roles, a sense of weariness edged at Jess's mind. What if none of it actually came to be? Just then, the door swung open and a man Jess recognized from the local paper strode in. Tall, with sharp features, he exuded a presence that cut through the crowd's chatter. She felt a chill. What was he doing here? Mr. Grant seemed to recognize him, too, tensing slightly. Ethan, he said, his voice tinged with surprise. You're a little early for the meeting. Don't worry, I'm not here to disrupt, Ethan replied nonchalantly, but Jess could see the air in the room shift. Curiosity sparked while unease coiled amongst them. I've heard about what you're trying to do, he continued, coolly addressing the crowd. But the question is, are you sure you want to depend on a billionaire's whims? What happens when things get rough? Murmurs spread like wildfire again, uncertainty once more eclipsing their budding hope. Jess's heart raced, pounding in her ears. Would this outsider, armed with doubt, unravel what they worked so hard to build? The atmosphere thickened, tension climbing as everyone turned to look between Mr. Grant and Ethan. As those heavy gazes collided, Jess held her breath. She knew whatever happened next could change everything. Would they stand united against this new threat, or could the storm finally sweep through, leaving Maplewood shattered once again? Ethan's presence loomed over the room, a storm cloud hanging dangerously low. Jess could feel the uncertainty creeping back in, settling like a frost over the warmth they built. Mr. Grant straightened his shoulders, his brows knitting together in frustration. "Listen, everyone," Mr. Grant called out, trying to anchor their attention. "What Ethan is saying is valid, but we can't let fear dictate our dreams. This garden isn't just about us. It's about our future. But what if it falls apart again?" A voice piped up from the back, a man who looked like he'd seen too many failed efforts. His frown deepened the worries swirling amongst them. "I won't let that happen," Jess said, surprising even herself with the strength in her words. "We've learned from the past. We're different now together. If we commit to this as a community, we can make it work." With every eye on her, she felt the weight of their hope and their doubt merge into something palpable. It was a challenge she hadn't anticipated but was determined to embrace. Ethan crossed his arms, unimpressed. "It's easy to say that when you're enthusiastic. But what about when the weeds grow too tall or the water runs low?" Jess stepped forward, heart pounding in her chest. "Then we pull the weeds together. We share the burden. We can draw from each other's strengths, just as we did tonight." There it was, the heart of the matter. A ripple of energy spread through the crowd. Someone chuckled, breaking the tension. "If we all pull together, even weeding can be fun." The laughter was light, but Jess felt the weight shift just a bit. "Yes," Jess exclaimed, leaning into the moment. "We can make it a community event, family days where we all contribute. We plant, we weed, we eat together. Imagine our picnic tables filled with food we grew ourselves." Ethan raised an eyebrow but didn't dismiss her. The people around him were nodding now, caught in her hopeful vision. Jess risked a glance at her mother, who wore a proud smile. Maybe they were onto something. Mr. Grant took a breath, sensing the tide turning. "All right, let us talk specifics. What do we need to make this a reality? How will we start?" The back and forth buzzed into life again, each suggestion met with rising enthusiasm. They discussed soil, seeds, and tools, how to engage the community. But as Jess smiled, she couldn't shake the weight of Ethan's doubt from her heart. Ultimately, they settled on forming subcommittees to handle different aspects of the garden: maintenance, education, community outreach. Each member chose their passion, choosing hope over hesitation. Jess felt a spark revive as people began to assign roles, promising to commit. Yet, when Jess looked up, Ethan was still watching her intently. His gaze wasn't just skeptical. There was something deeper lurking there. "Let me make one thing clear," he finally said, cutting through the chatter. "If you think this will be smooth sailing, think again. Nothing in life is guaranteed, especially with big hopes like this." As the crowd fell silent, Jess's heart raced at the corners of his warning. "But sometimes," she replied, holding his gaze, "hope is the strongest guarantee we have. If we don't try, we've already lost." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but she could feel Ethan's eyes lingering on her, a mix of admiration and challenge. Just then, a child tugged at Jess's sleeve, bringing her back to reality. "Can I help plant flowers? I want the garden to be pretty." Her heart melted. "Of course. We'll make it beautiful together," Jess assured, kneeling to the child's level, ignoring the way uncertainty still simmered beneath their united front. As everyone reached for one another, Jess knew they were creating sparks of strength. Could they really beat the odds? But with Ethan still watching, a lingering doubt remained. What undercurrents were at play here that she didn't see? As the gathering swirled back into laughter and brainstorming, Jess couldn't help but wonder if this was just the beginning. What hidden depths would they discover as they pushed forward, and what challenges awaited them in the shadows? Jess absorbed the warmth of the gathering as laughter danced around her, the air charged with excitement and newfound purpose. Members of the community formed small groups, tossing ideas back and forth like seeds being sown in a garden bed. She glanced at Ethan, still off to the side, his arms crossed, a guard rigid against the flow of optimism. "Jess?" Mr. Grant's voice broke her focus. "What do you think about leading the outreach committee? You've got the passion, and we need someone who can rally the community." The prospect thrilled her, igniting a fierce energy within. "Absolutely. I can reach out to local schools, create workshops, get the kids involved. We need to make this personal." "Great." Mr. Grant beamed, and she felt the warmth of encouragement wash over her. But her eyes flitted back to Ethan, whose gaze was sharper now, scrutinizing. "Wait," he interjected, stepping into the ring of light that everyone had cast upon Jess. Before you get too carried away, what if the resources aren't there? What is the backup plan? The questions hung heavily in the air, like the ominous clouds that had loomed over their last failed attempt. Jess swallowed hard. We'll fundraise. We can organize events, even partner with local businesses that might donate resources or funds. A man with gray hair and a weathered face stepped forward. I've got a buddy who runs a hardware store. I can check if he'd pitch in. A collective buzz erupted, agreement spreading like wildfire. Jess nudged the enthusiasm, feeling her confidence swell. Exactly. This is how we do it, by banding together. No one person is carrying this alone. Yet, even amidst the excitement, Ethan's gaze remained steadfast. What happens when the initial excitement fades? What if commitments drop off? It's easy to rally when everything is new and shiny. A few heads turned toward him, a discordant note slicing the joy. Jess felt her heart race. Ethan, I get that things might go sideways. But if we start from a place of hope and trust, we'll be more equipped to handle the weeds. Together. Words are just words, Ethan replied, his voice tinged with a mix of challenge and something else, vulnerability. Commitment has to be more than just tricks and events. It can't just fizzle out. Frustration simmered beneath Jess's skin like a pot nearing boil. What is your suggestion then? Just throw in the towel before we even begin? The crowd remained silent, tension wrapping around the room. Ethan took a step closer, the space between them charged. I'm not suggesting defeat. But what if we open a conversation about the potential for failure? It's real. I get that you want this to work. Then help. Jess's voice rose, frustration spilling over. If you have doubts, voice them constructively. We need you on this, not just standing back, questioning every move. The air crackled as their eyes locked, each refusing to yield. Jess felt the weight of the room, the mixture of support and trepidation swirling all around. Finally, a woman from the back shouted, "Let us hear him out." A chorus of murmurs followed, heads nodding as they instinctively sided with Ethan. Jess opened her mouth to speak, but paused. As much as she wanted to hold her ground, she realized this could be a defining moment. Okay, Ethan, what do you suggest? The crowd leaned in, curiosity sharpening the atmosphere. Ethan stood tall, taking a breath. What if we create a safety net? Let us not just count on enthusiasm. We can set measurable goals, checkpoints along the way, to make sure we stay on track. Call it a way of holding each other accountable. The murmurs turned into thoughtful nods. Minutes passed as people considered this. Jess felt a mix of irritation and admiration. Maybe Ethan's skepticism held a grain of truth, something that could safeguard their joint dream. Fine, she said, allowing the tension to diffuse a little. But if we're going to ensure accountability, we also need to celebrate every little victory. We can't lose sight of our passions while we're counting targets. Laughter broke like sunlight through clouds, and the mood lifted a touch. Ethan cracked a faint smile, a crack in his stoic exterior. Jess longed to dive deeper into that smile, but didn't he want to unravel the serious conversation? The meeting buzzed back to life, everyone beginning to jot notes and assign action points. Jess felt encouragement swelling. They were building something together, brick by brick. The excitement pulsed through her like new roots finding water, but a whisper of uncertainty remained. They would face challenges, and perhaps bigger storms than expected if they were truly in it together. A sudden shout from a child broke the air. Can I plant the biggest flower? Laughter swirled again, warmth blanketing the tension momentarily. Jess glanced at Ethan, who was now scanning the room, half lost in thought. She tried to read his expression. It was a complex blend, a specter of hope and realism. Jess wondered, as she caught sight of the potential beauty before them, if navigating this journey could lead to an unexpected revelation. What fruits of their labor would spring forth, and what shadows would still follow? The meeting buzzed with renewed energy, a collective sense of responsibility hovering in the air. Jess felt an electric pulse in her veins. She moved through the room, engaging eyes and excited chatter. The atmosphere was charged with potential, and it was infectious. Let us break into some smaller groups, Mr. Grant suggested, his voice booming above the conversations. Each of you can brainstorm ideas on how to implement Jess's outreach plan. We'll reconvene in 30 minutes. As everyone split off into excited huddles, Jess caught Ethan's eye again. He stood alone, an island amidst the animated discussions. She felt the pull of his presence, but hesitated. Did she want to dive into the complexity of his thoughts again, or was she ready to move forward? She chose the latter and joined a group discussing partnerships with local businesses. The ideas flowed like water: bake sales, craft fairs, and even a community potluck. The more they talked, the more Jess's heart swelled. She could see the seeds of their project firmly planted. But a nagging thought tugged at her mind: Ethan's skepticism. What if he was right? Would enthusiasm survive the first pushback? Jess, over here. A voice broke her reverie. It was Sarah, a bubbly mother with a flair for organizing. We're thinking of reaching out to those local farmers. Maybe they'd donate some produce for events? Jess smiled, feeling the warmth of community surrounding her, but her heart still danced between hope and doubt. That could work. They usually love to support local initiatives. Exactly. Sarah beamed. We can attach a buy local message to the outreach. It'll bring awareness to their businesses while we raise funds. As the group brainstormed more possibilities, Jess caught sight of Ethan across the room, his brows furrowed, engaged in quiet conversation with an older gentleman. Something about the way he leaned in, nodding seriously, gave her pause. Her chest tightened. She wondered if Ethan was still consumed by doubt, or if there was something deeper there. When the 30 minutes passed, the groups reconvened. Jess was elated, bursting with suggestions from her team. But as she opened her mouth to share, Ethan raised his hand to speak. The room quieted, tension creeping back in. I think there is something important we need to address, he began, his voice steady, but Jess could hear an underlying urgency. Her heart raced. Let us be real about the challenges, he continued. If we're banking on local businesses, we should develop a comprehensive plan. If we can't guarantee they'll want to work with us, we're setting ourselves up for frustration and disappointment. Multiple sighs echoed through the crowd. Jess felt a wave of conflict wash over her. He was right, but didn't he see how far they'd already come? But if we also bring in the community's voice, tell them what we're fighting for, Jess countered, her voice strong. We could inspire them to support local businesses just as they support us. The moment felt charged. Jess hoped people would rally behind her words. Would they see the power that lay within their shared experiences? The room buzzed with murmurs again. She turned her gaze back to Ethan. His expression was one of intense contemplation. All right, he said finally, conceding but with a hint of skepticism. But can we all agree to keep revisiting our plan? No matter how optimistic we feel, let us stay flexible. We can't afford to ignore any red flags. Jess felt relief mixed with frustration. She didn't want to feel like she had to justify every little step, but she admired his insistence on accountability. As the group fell back into discussion, an unexpected glow settled over her heart. Maybe navigating these moments would strengthen not only the project but the community itself. When the meeting wrapped up, Jess stepped outside, the sun bathing her in warmth. A child raced past her, laughter spilling into the quiet evening air. It sparked a thought. Could they truly cultivate lasting change? She saw Ethan from a distance, discussing something animatedly with Mr. Grant. The seriousness in his stance pulled her in. Was he still adamant about the challenges? Or was he beginning to understand the commitment behind the dream? Walking toward them, she felt the pressure build inside her. Ethan, she called as they turned. Can we chat? As she approached, Jess knew there was more to unravel between them. Her heart quickened. Could they confront not only the stakes of the project, but also the glimmer of something between them? And just as she reached them, she sensed the air shift with possibility. Would understanding bring about change, not just for the project, but for herself, too? Ethan turned, surprise flickering in his eyes as he met Jess's gaze. The sunlight streamed between them, adding a golden glow to the moment. Jess felt her stomach twist with nervous anticipation. Hey, Jess, he said, his voice softening. What is up? Can we talk privately? Jess asked, glancing at Mr. Grant, who seemed lost in another conversation across the parking lot. She led him a few steps away, her heart hammering. I wanted to get your take on the meeting, she started, unsure how to frame her feelings. Should she focus on the project or the unsettling tension brewing beneath their interactions? Ethan crossed his arms, a habit of his that Jess had come to recognize as a sign of contemplation. I think we're all on the same page about the need for a solid plan. We've got some great ideas, but he hesitated for a moment, searching for the right words. But you don't think we can pull this off? She felt a familiar pang of frustration. It's not that. It's just he paused, taking a deep breath. I see the potential, but I also know how easily enthusiasm can fade without results. I just don't want to let anyone down. His openness caught her off guard. Instead of feeling defensive, she found herself softening. Listen, I get it. Making changes in a community isn't easy, Jess replied, her frustration giving way to empathy. But isn't that why we're here? To inspire each other? Ethan's expression shifted, a mix of resolution and vulnerability washing over his features. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one who wants to keep us grounded. I care about this community, and I believe we can inspire change. I just don't want our enthusiasm to be a mask for what is possible. A rush of warmth spread through Jess. He was trying to protect everyone, but maybe his caution was also standing in the way. But isn't it worth taking that leap? What if we actually do rally people together? What if they surprise us? For a moment, silence enveloped them, her words hanging in the air. Ethan's eyes flickered with an unfamiliar spark. I don't want to sound defeatist, but I've seen enthusiasm turn into exhaustion before. I want to believe we can do this, Jess. Then let us believe together, she urged, her voice strong. You have to trust in people. They want to help just like you. We can transform that caution into something productive. He held her gaze, and in that instant, she felt a shift in their connection. The doubts that clouded his expression lightened just a little. Jess could see his resolve softening, and it ignited a flicker of hope in her heart. I'll try, he finally said, a tentative smile breaking through the clouds of uncertainty. But I need you to keep pushing. Deal. Relief washed over her as they shared a small, shared moment of triumph. Just then, Sarah approached, interrupting their conversation with a bright smile. Hey, you two. I just overheard some amazing news. One of the local farms is ready to meet with us this week. Ethan's face brightened at the announcement, and Jess felt a rush of excitement course through her veins. Perhaps this meeting would be the catalyst they needed. Let us get everyone on board, Jess replied, her voice bursting with renewed energy. Her earlier doubts began melting away as she envisioned the possibilities ahead as they all moved back toward the crowd. Jess noticed Ethan looking at her with a mixture of admiration and something she was hesitant to name. In these moments of shared purpose, could they also confront the deeper feelings brewing between them? But just before she could explore that thought further, someone called out from the crowd. Jess, you won't believe what I just found out. The excitement in the voices created a wave of energy. Jess grinned, turning her focus back to the project, but she couldn't shake the feeling that their real journey had only just begun. What truths lay in wait, ready to be uncovered? Would change come not only for their community, but also for the bond forming between them? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over Maplewood, Jess stood at the diner's window, a mix of hope and anxiety swirling within her. The town had agreed to come together for their day of kindness, but the shadows of doubt still hovered. Would they really unite? Would Ethan support her, or was his skepticism too rooted to overcome? The morning of the event dawned bright and clear. Jess arrived at the community garden, which was not just a patch of dirt anymore, but a blossoming hub of excitement. People of all ages had gathered, some shoveling dirt, while others shared stories, laughter filling the air. Jess beamed as she watched the transformation unfold. The collective spirit of hope felt tangible. But just as Jess felt the buzz of optimism hitting a crescendo, a familiar voice pierced through the community atmosphere. Ethan stepped into view, eyes scanning the activity with his usual intensity. Jess's heart raced. Was he still feeling protective or critical? She wished she could read his thoughts. Hey, Jess, Ethan called, weaving through a crowd of hands eagerly planting seeds. Not bad for a little enthusiasm, huh? His smile softened the edges of their past disagreements, and a warmth spread in her chest. Thanks for joining us today, she responded, confidence blooming anew within her. You've done an incredible job, he admitted, glancing around at the engaged community. Sometimes, it takes a spark to ignite a flame. A hesitation lingered, and Jess couldn't help but wonder if there was more he wanted to say, perhaps even push through their vulnerability. Just then, an elderly gentleman approached them, his hands filthy from the garden work and his face lit with joy. I never thought I'd see Maplewood like this again, kids planting, adults working side by side. It warms my heart, Jess. Emotion swelled in Jess's chest. Thank you. It means a lot to see the community invested. She glanced at Ethan, catching him nodding. And this is only the beginning, she added, both to him and the growing crowd. Let us keep pushing forward. A resounding cheer erupted, but then a loud voice cut through the moment. What is the point, really? A garden won't solve our problems. A voice from the back flickered a shadow of doubt. Jess's heart sank as she recognized the red-haired woman from before, her arms crossed defiantly. Nothing changes overnight, Jess replied, her voice strong, fighting back the wave of negativity. But every seed we plant today means a brighter tomorrow. Together, we can address the real issues, but we must start somewhere. The crowd watched silently, the air heavy with tension, yet also swirling with anticipation. Let us gather around, Ethan suggested, stepping forward, appearing to grasp Jess's hand for support. What do you all want to see from this garden? What change can it bring? Voices began to rise, ideas flowed like the saplings they were planting. More youth programs. Someone shouted. More activities, another echoed, eyes sparkling with possibility. They began to share ideas freely, visions for future events intertwining with laughter and enthusiasm, regardless of their past differences. Jess felt a surge of a familiar excitement light up her soul. This was what she had hoped for, the kind of unity that transcended borders and politics. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, warmth flooded their faces, and Jess's heart opened a little more. She stepped up. Imagine weekly community nights. We could host events right here at the garden. Share meals. Share stories. We could finally bridge the gaps that fear tried to build. Count me in, shouted someone near the back, lifting the mood higher. I'll help coordinate, another chimed in. Ethan stood back, watching Jess with admiration, something flickering in his eyes. Pride, perhaps? It felt like they were both slowly evolving, realizing that they were better together, stronger as a unit. Just as the magnetism of progress buzzed through the garden, the red-haired woman spoke again, looking almost soft-hearted now. I see your point. This has always been about more than just flowers, hasn't it? It's about us. The town rallied behind her words. Cheers erupted as people stepped forth, ready to commit to this journey of rebuilding. In the shade of an old oak tree, Jess turned to Ethan, her heart racing. This is it, right? We can take this further. Together. He nodded. The thing is, Jess, our greatest strength will come from consistency, staying engaged together. I'm all in. Really? She asked, surprise coloring her voice. Really, he reassured, finger raised as if sealing some unbreakable pact. The day culminated in joy, hundreds of tiny acts of love and commitment unfolding in the community garden. All those growing hands, reaching out toward each other, toward brighter tomorrows. As night fell, the garden twinkled with lights, and laughter resounded, mingling with the smells of fresh food cooked by neighbors. Jess felt a soft hand entwine with hers. Looking down, she saw her mother, her eyes sparkling with pride. We did this, didn't we? Jess whispered, voice thick with emotion. Yes, and so much more, her mother replied, beaming. It's about the connection, the love we all share. All around, the crowd felt like family, and Jess realized that they had indeed begun to heal one act of kindness at a time. As Jess took a deep breath, her heart full with hope and renewed inspiration, she understood this was just the start. It was a journey that combined courage with compassion, where every individual's voice mattered. She looked up at the night sky, and just like the stars shining down on Maplewood, her dreams glimmered bright with endless possibilities. This was it, the beautiful, imperfect journey of community, of healing, and of love. And she wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Now, listeners, if this story has warmed your heart and inspired you today, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and to show your support for stories like this one. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this ending, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. This is the moment for true fans to rally together,